Okay, so what is active learning? For most people, active learning is actually kind of difficult to describe because it is such a broad term. But the beautiful thing about it is that actually it's really not that hard to relate it to majority of all other teaching practices, and I think you'll all better understand that as I get going. But the main idea of active learning is to really get the students to engage in the material in hopes that they're going to retain it better. And some of just the basic core examples of this that we're all probably pretty familiar with and they're pretty obvious would be reading, writing, talking, listening, reflecting, discussing, all that sort of thing. What's the focus? Really, students and their learning needs are the focus of active learning. And as I just said, and I'm going to really stress this, the idea is just to get them to engage. It's get them to enjoy learning and find activities that are going to just enhance that learning. And then just to break down what it means to get them to engage, the whole point of active learning is to just get them to really grasp that information and the concepts that they're being taught. And you can do this by getting them to participate in any sort of activity. It could be an activity that hopefully they will enjoy, but they might not enjoy it. Either way, the fact that they're participating in something is really going to help them grasp that. And here's just a little visual. It shows with a passive learner, which is basically how I'm teaching you, which is kind of ironic. Someone who's just listening, the knowledge kind of goes in and then it drains right out the ear. And then with the active learner, it's really getting retained and they're really grasping that concept much better. What active learning does, a lot of educators believe that it creates an experience within the classroom. And it can increase focus. Students often, they're going to have to focus. They can't just pretend they're listening or daydream. They're going to have to focus because they're engaged in something. And they're going to have to participate, whether it's with the whole class or with each other. And that places some responsibility on the students. And it gives more opportunity for interaction, which also ties into what else we've learned today. And it can also help with the real world application. So sometimes they get put in groups and they don't want to work with each other, but you know what, in the real world sometimes that happens. And it can also reduce anxiety. Sometimes you get kids that they're going to be shyer and maybe they have a lot to share, but they're not going to share that because they just don't feel comfortable. If you break them up into smaller groups, then they might get more confident with discussing. And maybe some of you anyone here can recall active learning, whether it was in elementary school, middle school, high school, or even these past few years here in college. I know I can recall times where active learning has been used. This is kind of an example here. We're all giving presentations. As you can see, some examples would be like classroom debates, presentations, reading, a class game, a contest, computer games, reaction to a video that maybe you watched as a class. All those things are getting you to see and hear and really engage in the material. And then here's just a little visual of why it's effective. It's like the cone of learning. And this is saying that after 2 weeks, we tend to remember 10% of what we read, and then you can see as it goes down, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we see and hear. And then as we get down to the base of this pyramid, it shows us that what we say and do, we tend to remember the most of. So if we're saying something and we're literally doing it, we're going to remember it more. And that just makes for better learning. And then the benefits, it can recognize each learner. Everyone learns in a different way, and obviously it's near impossible when you have a whole class at any age group to cater to the learning needs of all of them. But if you get each of the students into an activity and just involve them, whether they learn different ways, they can all work together and participate. It provides a teaching method that works, and hopefully they can enjoy learning and then find things that they find interesting. And as I said before, it helps simulate maybe real life situations. Getting active. I added this in here as a form of active learning because this was the focus that I really took with my paper. But it's kind of like the thought of using physical activity and active learning and kind of combining it. And this is something that's getting more popular today, and there's more research being done on it. But researchers say that your blood's flowing and your heart's pumping and you're doing something physical, your brain's also more likely to respond and grasp the concept. Physical activity doesn't exactly have to be just for recess or just for the gymnasium, and I think this can especially be beneficial with younger students because they've got all that energy bound up. And then how to be successful? basically anyone can be successful with active learning. One of the big things is just be creative, find activities, even if they're ones that you've heard of or done before, put your own twist on them to make them fun. Communicate with colleagues or other educators, find out what they're doing, what they're not doing anymore. And just research, staying upbeat, as I like to say, what's going to be relevant to the students and what's going to be relevant to them, helping them in their lives. And then you can always do an evaluation, find out what worked, what didn't work, what you could do different, and what the students really enjoyed. And then just a quick review, active learning is a broad term, but the whole idea is just to really get your students to engage in hopes that they're going to retain that information much better and apply it to the real world. And overall, hopefully you make learning in a classroom setting fun and interactive and enjoyable.